Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Gare here with another video today, and I want to talk about something a little bit more serious than what I'm used to talking about. It's something I've been really putting a lot of thought into here lately. Something really quite near and dear to me, and I really want to talk to you guys about it. Really let you know how I feel, and kind of get a discussion going because I'd love to know what you guys feel about this topic. And I'm sure when you saw the title of the video, you guys are probably thinking to yourselves,
"Why so serious?"
And I understand, it does sound really melodramatic. It sounds like kind of over the top. But when I tell you guys my story, after I kind of get through this little prologue, you'll know what I'm saying and where I'm coming from, why I feel that way. Why video games really saved my life. So nowadays, anytime you hear anything about video games, 9 times out of 10, it's going to carry some sort of negative connotation. Like, there's going to be a negative story attached to it. Very, very rarely, if ever, do you hear some sort of positive out of it. I think, man, I've maybe heard 1 or 2 stories where there was a positive influence or, positive spin on the story involving video games. Like the kid that used his Mario Kart skills to stop a rolling car or something like that. That's one of the few ones that I can actually think of off the top of my head. But yeah, usually, like, if a teenager goes crazy, they shoot up their school, they beat somebody up, they kill their parents, they steal a car, something like that, the first thing that you're going to usually hear from the media or politicians is, it was video games. It was video games. They played a game, it rotted their brain, and they went crazy. That's where they got the ideas. Or, they were playing Doom, and they were listening to Metallica, or Marilyn Manson. He used to get blamed a lot for stuff. Or they saw it in a movie. They're so quick to go blame those sources of media, which, to be fair, I can kind of see where they're coming from. I've put thought into it, quite a bit. As a kid, I like to think I was a pretty sound-minded child. So, I don't think I would have ever got the idea just naturally to grab a gun or grab a knife and go stab somebody or shoot a school up or steal a car or anything like that, had I not seen it in a movie or in a video game or heard it in music or something. It's not just, I don't think that's a natural instinct to do, especially as a child. So I can definitely see where they're coming from. That kind of plants the seed to do those things. But there's definitely much more deep-seated issues there that if they don't know the difference between right or wrong, reality versus video games, there's something wrong with that kid, there's something wrong with the parents, the teachers, there's somebody that didn't catch it, and there's something definitely a lot more wrong with the situation. So, I get tired of hearing that. I really do. Video games, this kid, he played Doom or Grand Theft Auto, so that's why he did these things. That's why he went crazy and killed everybody. That's such bullcrap. It's just, that's the problem with our country. That's the problem with the world today. There's no responsibility for actions. There's no accountability for their actions. It's just so much easier to blame something else and go after that instead of address the actual issue, which is, 9 times out of 10, a mental health issue. And it just drives me absolutely crazy. I don't know why. It's just a huge waste of time. But in my day, when I was a kid, if I did something wrong, I got my butt spanked. I got grounded. I got my stuff taken away. It was something that I did wrong, and then it was something that my parents or whoever was watching me, they weren't disciplining me properly. So that's how it was. And even today, like, if my kids, say my daughter went to school and she just went crazy and beat up somebody, that would be her fault. Not just her fault, but it'd be my fault as a parent. Obviously somewhere along the lines I failed as a parent. I didn't teach her the right things. I didn't discipline her. I didn't catch the signs of aggressiveness. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's something along those lines. So, again, like I said before, it's so much easier just to blame something else. Parents don't want to take responsibility for their shortcomings. Teachers don't want to take responsibility for not paying attention to kids and stopping something that could have easily been prevented in the first place. And politicians, they just, it just gives them, it's a way for them to get votes. It's a way for them to have some sort of, a stadium to draw in more people and get, like I said, get votes and get money and all that crap. That's a whole nother discussion, but it does. It drives me crazy. I get sick of hearing about it. So anyway, with that aside, I really want to tell you guys about how video games were such a positive influence in my life. I'm so incredibly grateful that they were ever created, that they exist, because it scares me to think of the kind of person I would be if I didn't have those in my life, if I would still even be alive. And I know that sounds really outlandish and it sounds really crazy to say, but when I get through my story, again, you'll know what I'm saying. So I want to start back as a kid. I don't want to tell you my whole life story, but I guess I kind of have to give you an idea of my feelings on this. So pull up a couch. We'll get our therapy session on for a little while. When I was a kid, as far back as I can remember, I think I've always been pretty quiet, pretty shy, pretty socially awkward, introverted, all that. I think I've always had a hard time fitting in with other kids, with other groups, cliques, all that stuff. So I remember when I was 4 years old, my grandparents bought me my first NES system, the Nintendo Entertainment System. And I think that was probably the greatest, the shining moment of my life, because that's when I fell in love with video games. That's when I figured out what they were. That's when I think I was kind of getting to the point where I was old enough and cognitively I could understand what was going on and have an attachment to it. So, I definitely played the crap out of it until I started kindergarten. When I started kindergarten, I had a really hard time getting along, fitting in with the other kids. Just my shyness and everything really took effect there, and I started to notice it a lot more. And the town that I grew up in, guys, was really, really small. The population was about probably 300 to 400 people, and my kindergarten class was probably about 10 or 15, so it was really, really small. And it's a kind of rural town. Some of you guys might know what I'm talking about. It was in northwestern Kansas, really small, really rural. The kind of place where if you don't have the right last name or you're not really in close with one of those families, you get treated a lot different. Like, you're not going to be as accepted as well, and you kind of get treated as an outcast. And that was definitely the case with me and my mom. She was a single mom trying to raise me. We definitely didn't have the right last name, so she was treated a lot different. I was treated a lot different. And I just didn't fit in very well. So, I'd go to school every day, kind of play the part, try to get through it as best I could. And the thing that kept me going, to go home and keep me happy was I had, Dr. Mario or Super Mario Brothers 3 or Battletoads, or, one of those games waiting for me at home. And that's what I did. I got home from school, I'd run straight home, I'd plug in the Nintendo, and that's what I did. I played that, and that's what kept me happy. The other kids, they would have their little parties, and they'd hang out and play after school. I wasn't, a lot of times I wasn't invited to that kind of stuff because I just didn't fit in. So that's what I spent my time doing, playing Nintendo. Now, granted, I did have one good friend. He always invited me to his sleepovers, but that's what we did anyway. We played Nintendo games all night. So it was a lot of fun. And then as I got older, a couple years later, my mom and I, this is when we started moving, like pretty much every year, or at least every 2 years at the very most, we would move to a new town. So we'd have to pack up, say goodbye to the few people we did know, and start all over somewhere else. Again, she was a single mom trying to raise me, doing the best she could to provide for us and keep us fed, keep us sheltered and everything. So the more we moved, the more socially awkward I got, the harder it was for me to make friends, and the more I started just kind of shutting down internally. It became too much. It was too much of a heartache to make a friend finally after all that time putting effort into it, and then having to say goodbye and start all over. So as I got older and the more we did this is when I really started relying on video games to keep me happy, because I didn't have friends to hang out with after school. That's what I went home and did. Those were my friends. Link was my friend. Mario and Luigi, those were my friends. All that, it's really sad to say, but that's how it was. But it kept me happy, And again, during school, while the other kids were kind of BSing around class, joking around, having fun, I was sitting there doodling, Link's Adventure, or, some kind of doodling Link or Zelda or something like that, thinking about what I was going to do when I got home, what game was I going to play. And then as soon as I got home, that's what I did. From the time I got home till I went to bed, I would play those games. So when I turned 13, this is probably about the time when I really started noticing changes within myself. Again, we were constantly moving, and this is when I was starting to get kind of hormonal. I was becoming a teenager, and I really started noticing myself become a lot more aggressive. I was becoming a very spiteful and hateful person. I was just really angry on the inside. I was angry that I was so socially awkward that people didn't accept me, that I didn't have friends. I was angry at my mom for making us move all the time. I was just really angry in general. And I had some really horrible thoughts, I started fights all the time. I'd go to school. If somebody made me mad, I'd start a fight with them, push them around. I don't want to say I was a bully, but I didn't take any crap from anybody. If I felt like they were disrespecting me or treating me poorly, or I didn't like him, you know, I called him out on it, and I was a very hostile person. And I think the thing that really kind of kept that to a minimum and prevented it from really exploding and going too far was the fact that when I went home, I didn't just sit around my room and dwell on it. You know, I had my Nintendo 64 at that time to really keep me preoccupied. This is when Ocarina of Time came out, and I'm so grateful for that game. I really am. It's one of my all-time favorite games, and I spent months, if not years, playing that game. I mean, from the time I got home from school, you know, until bedtime, even sometimes after that, the weekends and everything, I played that game so incredibly much, and it really kept me a happy person. It kept my mind busy, so, you know, it kept me from kind of spiraling downwards, basically. So this kind of continued on until high school. At that point, I think my life kind of took a turn for the worse. This is like when my mom and I, we just hated each other's guts. You know, she was with somebody who was he was just a really horrible person in general. And I just couldn't take it anymore. I hated the school I was at. I had no friends. People treated me like crap, basically. And I was really depressed. Like, at this point, this is kind of when I was starting to contemplate just ending everything. I was not happy. I was in a really bad place. So, you know, I packed up, moved back to where I originally started, that small town I told you guys about, with my grandparents. You know, I did have some friends there, not many, but the few friends I had, we were really close, we had a lot of fun, and I just knew I'd be happier there. It would just be a better situation for everybody. So I finally got to spend, you know, my whole high school career, or my high school years in one school, which was really nice. No more moving, no more having to get to know people. I mean, I had to get to know new people because our high school closed down because it was so small. But the school we went to, I at least knew some of the people that were transferring with me, and it was great. You know, granted, I still wasn't the happiest person, but it was better than, you know, changing schools, changing people every single year. And, you know, games were still a really big part of my life. You know, again, it's the kind of area where I didn't have the right last name, so I wasn't really accepted by the masses. And, to add to it, I was a hardcore gamer. I was really nerdy. I was into Star Wars and stuff like that. And back then, you know, it's not like now where everybody thinks they're nerdy. Everybody thinks that kind of stuff is cool. Back then, if you were into that kind of stuff, you were kind of looked down on. You know, if you weren't a jock, or, you know, if you weren't athletic and everything like that, you got treated a lot different. So it was a lot different then as it is now. But yeah, I was really hardcore into that stuff. Plus, I was a skateboarder. So anytime, you know, especially in that kind of town, if you're into that kind of stuff, you automatically carry a bad reputation. They think you're a druggie. They think you're a punk. You know, you're up to no good. You're always vandalizing stuff. They just think you're basically a little hood rat, you know. So again, you know, I didn't have a lot of friends. So what I did after school every day, I would, you know, hit up the skate park, you know, do that, and then I'd go home, and again, I would play video games. And this is when the PS2 came out, so I had a lot of really great things to keep me busy. You know, I had Final Fantasy X, I had Devil May Cry, I had Metal Gear Solid 2. So, again, you know, I got to go, and that kept my mind off of stuff. It kept me going. It just kept me in my own little world. I didn't dwell on things, and it was really great. And I'm so grateful for that. Now, this continued on until my junior year of high school, and this is probably one of the worst times in my entire life. In March of, I think it was 2003, my friend and I, we were drinking one night, just, you know, being stupid high schoolers, having fun. He got a new car, so we took that out for a spin. I passed out, you know, I drank a lot that night, so I was passed out in the back seat. I woke up to the car spinning. We basically got in a really bad car wreck. I got thrown out, broke my back, shattered my entire left forearm, so, you know, bones were sticking out. And I got pretty jacked up. So, you know, needless to say, I was laid up in a hospital bed for, I want to say it was like 4, 5, 6 months. It was a really long time. You know, I couldn't really walk. I couldn't use my arm. And that was devastating. You know, I couldn't go to school, obviously. I was laid up in bed. So I was home by myself, you know, just every single day, just laying there thinking about stuff, dwelling on just that whole situation itself, how much pain I was in. And when you get in that situation, you become depressed. I mean, I don't care who you are, how strong you are. Especially at that age when you're just, you know, you're still kind of finding yourself. You know, I became a very depressed person. And I just kept wondering, like, why did I live through that? Blah, blah, blah. I was thinking about killing myself all the time. I had all these horrible thoughts. And a big part of why that was going on was because I couldn't use my arm. You know, I was in a huge cast. I couldn't even barely move my fingers. So I didn't have any games to keep me going. Luckily, I had SpongeBob, which was really big at that time. Oh God, SpongeBob really saved me. That was probably another thing that saved my life. But but no. So I was in a really dark place, and then finally, after I could start getting some movement in my fingers, the doctor told me that would actually be good physical therapy to play video games. So I took full advantage of that. We set up a little TV, got my PlayStation 2 hooked up down there by my hospital bed, and that's all I did, man. From the time I got up till I went to bed, I played the crap out of that thing. That's when The Getaway came out, so I played that a lot. I was playing Vice City a lot. God, what else? Final Fantasy X, I was still playing through that. There was just so many awesome games. Def Jam Vendetta, that was an awesome game. That kept me going too. But yeah, and I noticed, an upward in positivity. I wasn't dwelling on things. I wasn't thinking negatively all the time because I was immersing myself in those games. So I'm so grateful that I was able to do that, because if I had to lay there in that bed that whole time and I didn't have that diversion to keep my mind off of things, I had a bottle of painkillers with me that whole time next to my bed, just full of, oh God, what was it? Some really strong painkillers. There were so many times I thought about just downing every one of them. And anyway, I don't want to be too grim about it. I'm sorry, guys. So, I finally got, healed up from it. But, one of the other injuries I had was a TBI, a traumatic brain injury. If any of you guys have ever had it, it really messes you up. I mean, that's one of those things. I don't know if it ever heals or if you ever fully recuperate from it. But, I wasn't the same person after that. I was really crazy my senior year of high school. I became really outgoing. I partied all the time. And I was on antidepressants at this time as well. They put me on that while I was in the recovering phase. And those screwed me up as well. So, I kind of felt like I was bipolar that year, because there'd be times where I'd be just loving life, the happiest person in the world, and then there'd be weeks at a time where all I wanted to do was just lock myself in my bedroom. I was cutting myself. I was just I was in a really deep, dark place. And again, as I've said before, video games really helped me out. But this is kind of when I was starting to steer away from that. I was kind of getting to the point where, I'm getting too grown up. I don't need to be playing video games anymore, So I was going to do more adult things like partying and all that crazy stuff. So this continued on for a while. I really spiraled downward again. I just lost all my friends. They were getting into really bad stuff. They were getting into like smoking pot, and then that eventually led into doing like meth and crap like that. And that's all it became. All my friends were doing was partying and doing all this really crazy stuff that was getting them into trouble. And luckily, there for a while, I kind of started this is kind of when I started getting back into gaming. I found some of my older systems, and I got really into it. I was playing my old Nintendo 64, my old Nintendo, and I started kind of steering away from hanging out with people and just kind of becoming reclusive and hanging out at home playing those games. And it kept me out of so much trouble. While they'd go out and break into places and steal stuff, or they'd get MIPs, getting caught with alcohol or underage, luckily I was at home just kind of minding my own business doing that stuff. So again, it really, really kept me out of a lot of trouble during that time. So once I moved away to college, I just became so busy with that. Again, I got back into partying, so games was like, it was a really low priority for me, but I had a lot more stuff to keep me preoccupied. So, I was doing a lot better in life. I was happier, just in a lot better of a place. And, this continued on. We had our kids. I met my now wife. So I was just so busy. I didn't even have time to play games anymore. And, it wasn't a priority in life. I had other things to keep me happy. And once I graduated from college, I decided I was going to join the military. It's something I always wanted to do. I was apprehensive to do it because of my family and my prior injuries. But I got the all good to go do that. So joined the military, did that for a couple years. And again, I got injured while I was in the military. I screwed my back up really bad. I've got several herniated discs. And that led to, a lot of sleepless nights. Long story short, my command wasn't allowing me to be healed up from it, so it just kept aggravating the situation. I became super depressed because I wasn't sleeping. I was just in gut-wrenching pain all the time, and I finally kind of just lost my cool. They put me on a lot of anti-psych meds, and between my back injury and that, they basically gave me medical discharge and sent me back to the civilian population. So that 6 months, that time period in which my back was healing up and the discharge process, and I think about 6 months after I was actually discharged, was a really, really hard time because, not only was I in pain, not only was my body going through changes with the healing process and also taking antidepressants again, I was also very, very depressed about the fact that I was out of the military because I didn't want to get out. I really didn't. I wanted to make that a career. That was something I've always wanted to do, and I was very, very upset about that. I wanted to get back in so bad, but the injuries I have are going to progressively get worse as I get older, so they weren't having it, and I really struggled to adapt back to civilian life. So, I was there for a while, and to add to it, my wife and I separated for a while. So I was by myself. I didn't have my kids. I didn't have her. It was a really, really bad time in my life. And fortunately, again, I had all my systems were packed away, but luckily I had my computer with all my emulators. So, slowly but surely I started playing more and more classic games. And this is when I started really getting into collecting and retro and stuff. I came across Angry Video Game Nerd, and I was so glad that I did. He was one of those really positive things in my life that just, I'd get home from work or, whatever, I'd go home and watch several of his videos, and I always just laughed my ass off. Every one of his videos made me happy, and it was a nice distraction. And, I'd see him play some of these games, so I'd go boot up the emulator, play some of those games, and it was frustrating, but it was fun. Again, it kept my mind off stuff, and it just kept me going. And, eventually as time went on, I got better and happier. My wife and I got back together, and things started becoming better just in general in life. So that was just a couple years ago, and that was the time, like I said, when I started getting into collecting video games. My passion for it has always been there. I just never thought about collecting for it because I've never had the money to do so. I've never had the storage to do so. And then I came across CGR, his channel, where he goes through, he shows his pickups, he does live garage sale videos and things like that. And I knew right then and there from like the second video I saw, I was like, this is what I want to do. That looks like so much fun. It seems like a really cool hobby to do. And to have all these games around me, just to always look at them and just have that nostalgic value just staring me at the face anytime I want, it's worth more than, any dollar amount can ever, that I could ever put on it. So yeah, really the point that I'm trying to get across here, guys, is, gamers oftentimes carry as I said earlier, a negative view and negative connotation. People misjudge us all the time. A lot of people think that most gamers are violent, we're crazy, we're lazy, we're 40-year-olds that are fat slobs that still live with our parents. And that's not the case. I want people to really understand that not every person that plays video games is crazy and is going to emulate what they do and what they see. There's a much higher majority of us are sound-minded and sane, and we know the difference between right or wrong. Not all of us are going to do that. That's why we play these games. It's something we don't get to do in real life. That's what really consumes us. It's something that we're not given an opportunity to do, and that's how we get to kind of live that out. Yeah, holy crap! I didn't mean to talk that long, guys. But that's really my story. That's how positive of an influence video games have been in my life. Like I said before, I genuinely think if I didn't have those, I would have become a totally different person. I would have either killed myself, I would have been a violent person. I could be in jail today. I could be dead. It's really crazy to think of who I would be had I not had those things in my life to keep me going, to keep my imagination going and things like that. So if you guys have a similar story, I would love to hear it. Leave a comment below. Tell me, how have video games influenced your life, either for the good or for the worse. Or do a video response. That would be even better. I would love to hear your guys' stories. This is one of those topics I could talk about all day, obviously, because I've been rambling on forever. But it means a lot to me, and obviously, if you guys are watching this, you guys obviously feel the same way or can somewhat relate to it. So I would love to hear what you guys have to say. And if you disagree, let me know. The only thing I ask is just be respectful, be civilized about it. I'm always up for debating and talking about things, but just be civil about it. That's all I ask. Be respectful. But yeah, I want to thank you guys so very much for watching. I've really enjoyed doing this channel. I love all the interaction. I know I've said this before, but I really do. I appreciate all you guys. I love the conversations we get to have. It really means a lot to me. It really does. So I want to thank you guys all again. Thank you for watching this video. I know it's really long. But that's all I have. So again, you know, like this video if you enjoyed it. And just let me know what you have to say about it. I'd really like to hear. So thank you guys very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.